Stand by.
7:21. Good morning, Britain. This happened very, very early this morning, about 4 a.m. UK time. Melania Trump chose a compassionate tone for her Republican convention speech last night, contrasting the divisive speeches so far made by other members of President Trump's family.
The First Lady spoke about the historical slave trade, her own experience of the American dream, and referred to U.S. parents as warriors. And of course, she had nothing but praise for her husband too.
If you tell him he cannot be done, he just works harder. We all know Donald Trump makes no secrets about how he feels about things. Total honesty is what we as citizens deserve from our president. Whether you like it or not, you always know what he's thinking. I also ask people to stop the violence and looting being done in the name of justice, and never make assumptions based on the color of a person's skin. The invisible enemy, COVID-19, swept across our beautiful country and impacted all of us. My deepest sympathy goes out to everyone who has lost a loved one.
Melania Trump there. We're joined now by Anthony Scaramucci, who was once Mr. Trump's press secretary, but is now one of his fiercest critics, and also by former Trump strategist Matt Braynard. Thank you both for joining us. If I can come to you first, Anthony Scaramucci, I mean, you know, we're desperately looking for some kind of empathy. A lot of people have been looking for empathy from Donald Trump himself in his 4 years as president, particularly at the Republican convention. And it's come from, you know, in many ways an unexpected place, from Melania Trump, who as First Lady has been fairly quiet as a First Lady, it has to be said. But this was where we got the empathy, where we got the compassion, wasn't it?
Listen, I want to be fair to the First Lady. I thought she gave a very good speech. It was certainly empathetic. And she was the first person to actually acknowledge the virus and the death toll. You know, we have 178,000 people that have died. We're on our way to about 250,000 by Election Day. So, I mean, she obviously can't explain to the American people that it's because of the president and his failure to handle the virus and to take the epidemiology of the virus seriously. And she did mention something very ironic about honesty. This is a president that told 20,000 lies, but the real pernicious lies were the ones about the virus and politicizing things like wearing masks and so forth. So
that's wholly dishonest.
She can't bring all that stuff up, but she did get a hidden jab in there with saying that we deserve honesty from the president.
Matt Braynard,
that is completely dishonest.
You disagree clearly with Anthony's assessment there.
Well, to go to the broader question, historically, the First Lady's speeches have always been an opportunity to soften a candidate, to present the side of him that the public doesn't get to see, but is more the family man or the family wife. So it's not new, and she did a very good job executing that. I think Jill Biden did an excellent job doing that with her speech. But what my former, I guess, colleague here has said is wholly inaccurate to try to lay this crisis from the pandemic at the president's feet. He has done everything he possibly could to limit the spread of this, and you cannot point the finger at the death toll without pointing the finger at the blue state Democrat governors who have made critically bad decisions in terms of putting people who have the disease in nursing homes, putting our elderly at risk, and not encouraging people to go out and celebrate Chinese New Year's because the New Donut is racist. And right at the moment when the disease was spreading most, the president has supported all these states, made sure they had the medical supplies they needed, make sure they had ventilators. And when he was calling for a travel ban to China, Joe Biden saying it was a terrible idea when it was in fact saving American lives.
Matt Braynard, you're doing exactly what you. On one hand, you're saying Melania's speech was, it was compassionate. We accept that, but you're kind of ignoring what she said. She said, "I don't want to use his precious time attacking the other side," and you've just done exactly that. So
no, I'm correcting the record because
what she's saying. I mean, does it hold no credence, the message that she's trying to give?
Look, when I'm on a show and somebody's being dishonest, I need to correct the record. So that's exactly what I've just done.
But just talk about Melania Trump's impact.
Didn't say anything dishonest. He
didn't. He took his time to attack the president rather than talking about Melania Trump. So I talked about Melania Trump. I discussed that she did an excellent job, as did Jill Biden, as do the first spouse historically, or the candidate spouse. She did a fantastic job accomplishing her mission, which is to soften up the candidate.
But Trump in the polls, it suggests that he is weakening his connection with, the women of America. Is Melania Trump going to be able to, sort of lessen that gap, really, between him and those female voters in America? Because clearly that's what Melania Trump, in a way, is meant to be doing.
That is what she's meant to do, and that's what often the spouse's objective has been, again, is to soften up the candidate, to try to bridge a gap to people who don't relate. And I think she did a good job with that, and she did as good a job with that as could be done. I think she did a phenomenal job with that, sure.
Would the White House, would the officials there been across her speech? Because there's one line coming out that it wouldn't have been vetted, but I fail to believe, actually, that Melania's Trump speech wouldn't have been seen by Donald Trump himself before she read it out.
Look, I think that this convention as a whole has been produced on a professional level that I think the Democratic convention could only aspire to. I think the speeches so far have been well coordinated and connected with themes in a way that made sense, that make people proud of their country. So I think that this speech was, as all the speeches, been completely on message and successful in advancing and trying to basically, all the conventions in the modern era, since we stopped making real decisions at conventions, they've basically been a commercial for the party and the candidate. And it's been very successful.
Isn't that a problem, Anthony Scaramucci, for the Democrats, in that, Trump sucks out all the air of any room he walks into, of any tweet, anything he does, he absolutely will pull focus. And isn't the problem for the Democrats, in a sense, that they'll end up talking about Trump all the time?
Well, listen, again, we're gonna respectfully disagree, but I didn't say anything dishonest, and I did praise the First Lady's speech. I'm just pointing out the irony of her calling for honesty from the president when the guy's a full-blown liar and he's said over 20,000 lies. We can debate how he handled the epidemiology of the crisis, but he waited a very long time, and the nonsense about the travel ban to China just isn't true. Over 40,000 people traveled in from China.
U.S. citizens. So U.S. citizens aren't allowed to come home. Let's be clear about who we're talking about. It was U.S. citizens and people who had a right to be here.
But this is the gaslighting that Mr. Trump's team is doing now, and that's fine. They're entitled to that gaslighting. But the good news is 70% or 67% of the American people realize that he totally mishandled the crisis. We now have him subverting the Hatch Act, and we now have him breaking the law by using the Rose Garden and showing U.S. Marines in political videos. We know that's a direct violation of policy, direct violation of military policy, and it'll probably cause the Marine Corps Commandant to have to resign because of what the president's doing. So we're in a situation now where we're breaking every norm.
This is such a reach.
Of course, we have our own issues to deal with, and perhaps that issue you're talking about won't have been, sort of punctured the psyche of the British viewers here. But just talk about, in broad
or American
terms, the problem for the Democrats now is what? Or is it, the wide belief in many circles is that, of course, Joe Biden will win by a landslide. But you can't call Trump out, can you? Because, at this point, 4 years ago, the entertainment, the video of him saying things about women I don't want to repeat the phrase, we all know what the phrase is, that came out and he was still elected. So we can't write him off, can we, at this point, even though many would like to?
I do agree with that. I think the president is a very formidable competitor, and I think you have to run through the tape here. But the vice president is going to beat the president. The American people know that the question, the proverbial Ronald Reagan question, are they better off than they were 4 years ago? They're frankly not better off. The country is sicker, the country is weaker, and it's a poorer country today as a result of this man's incompetence. So he's going to lose. And one of the things my former colleague's failing to recognize is that the president did an amazing job of alienating between 5 to 8% of the Republican Party, which is splintered off from the president's base. And come November 3rd, he's going to see the results of his personality, and he's going to lose. And so that's it. I mean, and these guys can say whatever they want, and they can gaslight. But at the end of the day, we're in the steepest recession that we've been in since the Great Depression. Direct result of the American president's policies.
I need to ask you, actually, while you're here.
That is asinine. Every country in the world is suffering from this pandemic. The U.S. had a contraction of about a third. The U.K. had a contraction of about two-thirds. And the president is not entirely responsible for everything that happens. It's the blue state governors that you are ignoring.
Okay.
If you were honest, you would call them out for their policies that have led to massive numbers of deaths.
We know you're both not going to agree on this. We know you both, but we're running out of time. But I do want to get, Matthew, if it comes to you first, just want to get your thoughts on, we look from here at the UK and we look to America and we look at what's going on in America. And once again, we've seen a horrific incident regarding a black man and the police with Jacob Blake, and we've seen this heartfelt pleas from both his father and his mother in the last 24 hours. The scenes in Wisconsin don't look great. What is going on in your country?
Well, I think that the media in this country...
It looks horrific when we look at the screens. At a time of election, I mean, it looks like we're going back years, decades.
The media has a habit of injecting race into incidences where it's not present and trying to conflagrate, trying to create more drama than there really is. There was an incident, it will be investigated. If somebody's responsible, they will be prosecuted and put in prison. The police in that city are elected by the population in that city. Their policies, who they hire, everything they do, all their training was determined by the population that elected them, and unfortunately is deciding to burn down neighborhoods and riot. Not entirely people in Kenosha alone, but ultimately the people in that community are going to make the decisions about their police officers. What we don't need is national and international media trying to inject racial division into what is a tragic incident, which will be completely investigated regardless of the reporting on it.
I don't think you can entirely blame the media for the death of a disproportionate death of black people in America at the hands of American
police. It's not disproportionate. First of all, I can blame you right now for misrepresenting the facts, because that's not factually true, not in a per capita sense or an absolute number case.
Incorrect? What have I said that's factually incorrect?
Because blacks are not disproportionately killed by police when they're in an unarmed encounter. The Wall Street Journal documented that. It's just not true. And you guys keep repeating it, and eventually you may succeed, enough people will believe it, but it's just not true. And the FBI crime statistics back that up.
So it's not true that black people in America feel that they are unfairly targeted.
They feel that way because you keep telling them they should feel that way based on lies and phony statistics that have no basis in reality. And I'd love to go through those numbers with you, but that wasn't what I was prepped for today. But I'd happy to come back tomorrow and go over that with you and bring you up to speed.
Well, I just wanted to get your thought as an American. We just want to get your thought. Anthony Scaramucci, your thoughts on what's happening there with Jacob Blake. We've seen the emotional pleas from his family in the last 24 hours.
Like a gaslighting chamber. I feel bad that he's saying all these mistruths on your television show, and I feel bad that he's in that like Trump chamber where he feels like he's got to lie even in the United Kingdom. That's fine, but listen, there has been a problem. I have relatives on the police force. I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood. The African-American community has been targeted unfairly, and it is a social crisis in the United States. And at the introduction of the smartphone, what you saw happen in Kenosha, Wisconsin, is happening all over the United States, and has happened for many, many decades in the United States. So rather than pretending it's not true and these people don't feel the way they feel,
you do have a video.
We have to heal the racial divisions in the country, and we have to acknowledge that there is a problem. I mean,
the reason you're citing a video is because you don't have statistics to back it up.
Article is actually the most asinine thing that's been said so far in this.
Citing facts. You have a video, and I have FBI statistics.
It is about
that's equal.
And Anthony, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there.
Too bad. We could come back and do this all day.
I know you could. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. It's important to hear both sides, and both very passionate on opposite sides of the argument there. Right, 7:35. Still to come, lions, tigers, and a murder for hire plot gone wrong. Find out.